Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in what's early evening here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We'll get started in just a few moments. I want to make sure that your fellow attendees have a chance to settle in, grab that cup of coffee or hot tea, get comfortable. We will get started in just a few moments. All right, I say we get started. It looks like our numbers have balanced out here. So thank you again for tuning in. This is our session on exploring the Master of Theological Studies, and I am joined by a wonderful panel of students and my esteemed colleague, Professor David Lamberth, whom you'll hear from in just a little bit. Before we get to the panel session, I do want to introduce myself. My name is Alessandra Ludeking, and I'm the admissions officer here at Harvard Divinity School. I've been with HDS for just 6 months now, so I'm fairly new to the HDS community, but I'm not new to Harvard. I was previously an admissions assistant and admissions officer at Harvard Law School as well for a few years. So again, it's a great pleasure to be here with all of you. Today's session will, of course, focus on our most popular degree program, the Master of Theological Studies. Before I get there, I do want to offer you about a 10-minute overview of Harvard Divinity School at large with our resources, a degree program, student life, and admissions requirements. So that should take up about 10 minutes. During that time, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera so that the slide information is a little bit more accessible. And then after that point, I will go ahead and turn it over to Professor Lamberth and our student panelists, and they'll also be reserving some time at the end for Q&A. So if you do happen to have any questions about the Master of Theological Studies over the course of the presentation, please feel free to make use of that Q&A box, and we'll make sure to address your questions as best we can. So I'll start us off then with that 10-minute overview. I'll go ahead and turn off my camera, and I'll see you again in about 10 minutes. So to start, Harvard Divinity School was founded in 1816, and it was the first divinity school in the United States. HDS is a non-sectarian or non-religiously affiliated school of religious and theological studies that educates students both in the academic study of religion as well as the practice of religion for leadership in religious, governmental, and a whole host of service organizations. We have over 45 faith traditions represented in our student body, including, of course, students who are not religiously affiliated. And we have over 500 recurring worship services, all of which make Harvard Divinity School the most religiously pluralistic divinity school in the world. And our applicants often wonder what career paths are available to students who graduate with a religious degree. And our degree programs honestly lead to an infinite number of pathways with alumni in every field and industry, all of whom value ethical leadership, develop religious literacy skills, and are service-oriented and mission-driven. Typically, skills that our graduates indicate they developed during their time at HDS include things such as deep listening, ethical reasoning, bridging divides, and navigating difficult conversations. So that's just a brief overview of HDS, but also what are our students like here at HDS? This here is a slide that gives you a very, very generic snapshot of our first year students. So as you can see here, the MTS, the Master of Theological Studies, is the most popular with 96 students currently pursuing that degree, as well as 52 in our Master of Divinity, 12 in our Master of Religion and Public Life, 4 in our Special Student Program, and 2 in our Master of Theology program. And I'll touch on each of our degree programs briefly in just a moment. You can also see on this slide here that our incoming class has 55% of individuals identify as female, 34% as male, and 7% as non-binary. The average age is 28 years old, and our age range spans from 21 to 68 years. As I mentioned earlier, our students have reported over 45 different religious affiliations, so 46 to be exact. And we're pretty proud of that number on the bottom center there, 121 undergraduate institutions represented in a class of 165 students. So our students really are coming to us from a diverse academic background. As I promised, I'm going to touch base here on our 4 degree programs. I won't really spend too much time on the Master of Theological Studies, as you'll be hearing directly from a faculty member and current students about that program. Just important to note that it is a 2-year full-time degree that offers broad study generally in religion with opportunities to concentrate in one of 18 areas of focus. And we do offer generous institutional grant aid for this degree program. Next up, we have our Master of Divinity, or the MDiv, which is a 3-year full-time degree. This we consider for 21st century spiritual leaders. This program is especially great for students that are interested in learning the art of ministry. And ministry here is very intentionally spelled with a lowercase m. It's broadly conceived as students interested in mission-driven or service-oriented work that includes preaching, pastoral care, community organizing, and it links the theory that students learn in classroom to practical field work or internship placements in different settings, both within the United States and across the globe. In addition to the MDiv and the Master of Theological Studies, both offer generous institutional grant aid. We have our Master of Theology, the THM, and this is a 1-year full-time degree. It's a little bit more niched. This degree is actually intended for applicants who already have a Master of Divinity or its equivalent, and they're really just looking to explore a topic in greater depth in such a way that would help them impact their current ministry. Important to note here that we don't have institutional grant aid available for this degree program, but we do have federal funding options and information on our website. And then our most recent degree program is our Master of Religion and Public Life. This is the 2nd year that we are offering it, and it is also a 1-year full-time degree. And it's a pretty cool program. It's designed for applicants who are essentially mid-career already. So they're established in their professions and are looking to kind of take a pause in their careers to come to Harvard Divinity School for a year and immerse themselves in religious studies to learn about ways in which religion impacts their fields. So students in this program will participate in coursework and a shared seminar with other professionals that culminates in a final project. Again, that shows a deepening of an understanding of religion within their fields. Just like the THM, this program does not have institutional grant aid available, but we do offer federal funding options on the website. And then, of course, our degree programs are taught and led by our outstanding faculty, of which you'll hear from one in just a few moments. Our faculty here at HDS are among the most distinguished scholars of religion and practitioners of ministry in the world. We have over 80 faculty and guest lecturers that teach close to 200 courses every year. And of course, our faculty includes some of the world's top scholars in Buddhism, Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, and many other traditions. As you can see on the slide here, 54% of our faculty are tenured women or faculty of color, and 34% specialize in non-Christian traditions. So this is just a really quick overview of the academic offerings here at HDS. And of course, Our beloved institution would not be what it is without our wonderful students. And you'll be getting to hear from several of them in tonight's panel session. As you can see here, we have over 35 student organizations that are supported by our Office of Student Life. And of course, it's really easy to start your own student org if you don't find one here that meets your interests. Some examples of student organizations that we have include our Queer Rights, Harry Potter and the Sacred Text, the HDS Garden Group, and Third Chapter, which is a group for students who are over 50 years old. And these student organizations host over 60 student-led events every year, in addition to the over 500 recurring events that our students also participate in. Two of the more popular ones include our noon service on Wednesdays and a community tea on Tuesdays. So again, this is just a really quick snapshot overview of ways to engage on campus. And then of course, we understand that graduate school is a financial investment. So I do want to touch base on financial aid options that we have here at Harvard Divinity School, namely two of them. And again, these are limited to MTS and MDiv students. So approximately 90% of our MDiv and MTS students receive some form of institutional grant aid, the vast majority of which is need-based. So to apply for need-based aid, you would be submitting a financial aid application in early to mid-January. And there are 3 levels of need-based aid available. There is 3/4 tuition, which is the bare minimum that we provide, as well as full tuition, and then full tuition with a living stipend, living expense stipend. We also have a very small pool of merit aid that is awarded based on the overall strength of an application. And we here in the admissions team automatically evaluate all candidates who submit an application for merit consideration. So there is no formal application process for merit aid. If you are awarded merit aid, this would include a full tuition grant with a modest stipend. And all merit aid decisions will be released at the same time as the admissions decision. Speaking of admissions decisions, this is our timeline and required application components. I'm not going to go into too much detail on our application components, as we do have various information sessions occurring this fall as well that goes into much greater detail on the requirements and our advice for each of these. I will though touch on our interview, which is a new addition to our cycle this year. So we will be extending interviews, which will be by invitation only. And this will be happening around late January, early February, and all interviews will be conducted virtually, so we don't disadvantage candidates who don't live in the Cambridge area. And then of course, our timeline here, just to get a sense, our application has been open for almost a full month now, and it does close first week of January, January 6th. We do not operate on a rolling admissions basis. So that means that you can submit your application at any time between now and the deadline, and your admissions decision will be released at the same time as everyone else's in mid-March. So please feel free to take the time that you need to make sure that your application really does reflect your greatest strengths and effort. And then finally, if you do have any questions about the admissions process, please feel free to connect with us. The QR code will take you to a form that will sign you up to our mailing list so that you get all important emails and updates from us. You can also email our general inbox as well, or email our current students. We do have several students who do monitor that inbox and can provide you with insight on student life. We also have a blog that's written by our students, and of course our Instagram that has some great updates on happenings and goings at HDS. Whew, all right, so that's plenty from me. I've been chatting for a little while. We're here and we're arriving to the main portion of our session here, which is exploring the Master of Theological Studies. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera on really quickly and invite our moderator, Professor David Lamberth, and our student panelists as well to unmute their microphones and turn on their cameras. Thank you all so much for joining me this evening for our event. And I'm going to take it away.
Excellent. Welcome, everyone. It's great to have you here today. We hope that we can engage you a bit about this really wonderful degree program and opportunity, and answer in the process some questions that you might have on your minds and give you a sense of some of the students' experiences presently. I'm David Lamberth. I'm professor of philosophy and theology here on the Faculty of Divinity. I've been a member of the faculty now for 20 some odd years, and teach broadly in the range of modern religious thought in the West, in both Europe and the United States. It's my pleasure this year to serve once again, as I have some years ago, as the faculty chair of the committee that oversees the MTS degree program. This degree, as Alessandra was saying, is our largest student constituency. It's our biggest program. We've got 90 some odd people joining each year, so a really large cohort of students on campus who participate in this program. And it is, in fact, our most flexible and broadest degree program. You, in the MTS program, would study for the equivalent of 2 years. 16 courses is spread between 6 courses in a chosen area of focus, 3 courses specifically outside of your area, and then the rest of your courses arrayed between things you might need for meeting our language requirement or electives that you might choose. MTS students can take up to half of their coursework elsewhere in Harvard University or in the Boston Theological Consortium, which is a group of schools throughout Boston that have strong programs in coming at religious studies or theological studies from different angles. So there's a great wealth of opportunity, and being able to cross-register in the university opens classes not only in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, but in Harvard's Kennedy School, in the School of Education, in the law school, et cetera. And so they're really broad opportunities for a variety of things to focus on. The area of focus requirement is really an organizing structure. We want you to focus some of your work while you're here into developing expertise in something like religion, ethics, and the politics, for example. That's one area, or perhaps Islamic studies, or maybe South Asian religious traditions, or African and African American religions. The point here is to develop some knowledge and expertise and get some overlap of a certain group of courses, but then we also encourage people to go wide and broad, and also to engage with other disciplines and approaches to study, which is part of the benefit of being a part of one of the really most remarkable university collections of schools and opportunities that you'll find. In doing this study, we also want you to have to demonstrate intermediate reading knowledge of a language that's relevant to your area of study. This might be a language you've already studied, so this might not be a significant requirement, but there's also the opportunity to study languages and to use those undesignated courses in your path of study to study 1 or sometimes 2 languages while you're here. So there are a lot of different opportunities as you go on here. We currently have 18 areas of focus, and if one of those doesn't really suit the need of focusing your study, we also have the opportunity to work with the chair of the committee, who is currently me, but to shape an area of focus that would really suit the faculty's requirements, but also suit your needs. So it's a really broad program. It brings a really remarkable set of students together as a learning community, along with the students from our other degree programs. And we have students go in class together from all of those programs routinely. Let me turn now. I want to say no more, at least initially, about the program overall, but instead turn to my colleagues on the student panel and ask them first to simply introduce one another, or sorry, introduce themselves to you, and then we'll turn to some questions maybe to organize things. So no particular order. I'm trying to figure out what order I've got you on myself, but Wesley, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Absolutely, yes. Hi, everybody. I am Wesley Sena. I am originally from Brazil, and I am a first-year Master of Theological Studies at Harvard Divinity School. My area of focus is Hindu Studies, and I am very excited to be here and help you on your journey and be helpful towards your journey to Harvard Divinity School, hopefully.
Thank you. Sarah.
Hello, it's great to see everybody here. I'm from California. I'm Sarah Bai, and also, like Wesley, a first-year MTS student. My area of focus is religion, ethics, and politics, and excited to get to know some of you and answer your questions and help you guys learn more about our wonderful program.
Terrific. Thank you, Sarah. Rajay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rajay, born and raised in Kingston, Jamaica, but immigrated here in 2014. So now I live in Brooklyn, New York. Also a first-year MTS student. My concentration is in theology, specifically that Catholic theology, and I'm interested in how that could impact schools, or how could theology make schools a better place. So yeah, nice to meet you.
Excellent. Jesus.
Yeah, no, greetings, everybody. My name is Jesus. I am actually a second-year Master of Theological Studies candidate. My area of focus is in religion, ethics, and politics, and I'm from the Southwest region.
Terrific. So it's great to have you all here with me. You've got a lot more on-the-ground perspectives on the whole school, much more so than I do. So let me turn and start to pose some questions to you all. And maybe I'll start with kind of the big question that brought you into thinking about the MTS degree, which is thinking about the goals personally or professionally that led you to choose Harvard Divinity School as the place for your study at this time. So I'll look to you all for volunteers instead of
All right, I can go first.
There we go.
Sarah,
all right.
Sarah, you can go first if you want to.
Sarah.
Okay, sure. Well, it's great to see everybody. And I guess my journey, both of a spiritual one and also a professional one, and maybe for some of you, you're thinking, how does it relate to my spiritual, academic, professional, scholarly, etc.? There are a lot of different dimensions of what we're thinking about as we consider this program. So I became Christian in 2017. And I said, as a newer Christian, I really want to explore the intersection of faith and ministry and service within a very diverse curriculum as well. Not just about Christian studies and Christian theology, but more broadly, how can we learn and make an impact? And my area I'm really interested in social impact work, and that's what we went to professionally afterwards. And so I want to highlight something that Professor Lamberth spoke about, which is being able to take courses at many different schools, and even my own curriculum this semester. So I'm taking 4 courses. Most students take 4 courses. We have a required course, which is called Theories and Methods in the Study Theories and Methods in the Study of Religion. And so that one everyone takes, and it's a great class because we all take it together in this shared common experience. Also taking a course at the Divinity School here with Professor Paul Sell on Thomas Merton. And then I'm taking a course at the Kennedy School on Nonprofit Management and Leadership, and the course at the Business School on Managerial Decision Making. And it's really possible where you can blend your curriculum so well to really tailor it. I think that personalization of the curriculum and also the broader learning experiences is such a highlight of Harvard Divinity School, and certainly one thing that drew me, and then coming here turned out very much to be a reality. So I wanted to send that plug right there. And then Wesley, I want to make sure that you get a chance to speak too. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So sometime after high school, I became a monk. I was a monk for almost a decade of my life studying Vedanta philosophy. So my decision to apply to Harvard Divinity School was very much based on the fact that HDS is one of very few schools in the country where you can do graduate work in Hindu studies. So that spoke to me a lot. And like Sarah was saying, being able to take classes outside Harvard Divinity School. Harvard Faculty of Arts and Sciences has a Department of South Asian Studies, where they have lots of classes on Sanskrit and Indian and South Asian religions. So comparing to all the other schools that I applied to, I felt much more comfortable being able that I would be able to take these classes and take advantage of Harvard in general for the benefit of my area of focus at HTS as Hindu Studies.
Terrific. Jesus.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Wesley and Sarah. You guys had amazing answers and responses. I think for me, and just to provide context, I went straight from undergrad into my graduate work. So there was no gap year or time in between. I mainly came and chose the MTS program specifically because it offered the opportunity for you to really make what you wanted out of it. And for me, coming into div school, I knew that there was two things that I was really interested in. I was interested in policy and politics and how religion affected it. And so for me, it's a very niche or a niche kind of focus to look at things. And, I reviewed other programs at other divinity schools. And for me, Harvard's ability to give me the freedom to make what I wanted out of it was something really important. Similar to my colleagues, I've taken classes at the Kennedy School as well as the law school. And, I've really appreciated the interdisciplinary work that I've been able to do. I think a second reason too, for me choosing this program as well as the div school here is just because of how pluralistic the people and the programming are. You'll take a course on Christian ethnography, but then you'll have practitioners that are Hindu or Muslim, and it's just a vast array, and they offer you so many different perspectives. And I think for me, and definitely for my fellow colleagues, when you come to div school, you get challenged. And I think an additional level of that challenge is looking at it from different cultural perspectives, which I think just add a whole beautiful twist on things. And so, yeah.
Terrific. Let me say that having classes be challenging is not only an experience for the students, but also for the faculty too. And it's a terrific learning experience that kind of cuts both ways, day in and day out. Rajay, let me turn to you on this question as well.
Yeah, I think I came here for two reasons. Well, three, if we're being honest. The first one was I've been in Catholic school all my life, even when I was in Jamaica. And my undergraduate degree is in theology and applied psychology. And I think it's easy to study theology within your context, right? So if you're a Catholic studying Catholic theology in a Catholic school, like that's very convenient, right? Like you're not gonna get much of a challenge necessarily, right? Because everyone in a sense believe what you do. You're getting all the classes are catered towards Catholic theology. Like it's convenient. And I was like, what if I switch it up and go somewhere else where that's not the case? Like, how much of a difference would it make on me? And I'm only here for 2 months, so I haven't come to the conclusion to that answer yet. But it's definitely challenging. The second reason was that I want to be a teacher after this. I want to teach high school theology, and the ed school is pretty good. So again, just like Jesus saying, taking advantage of those other schools and making our curriculum a little interdisciplinary. The third reason was for the money here. They took care of me more than everyone else. So
let's be honest, right?
Yeah, that's my short answer.
Terrific. Well, let me ask all of you. Some of you are just first year students, but still, the first semester is a fast moving vehicle. So let me ask how you have changed as a result of your time and experience here. Some of you have touched on this a bit, but let me ask you to reflect on that if I can.
All right. So I don't know why that happened to me, but I tended to be a very pushy person. Like I try and make things happen. And when I try and make things happen, things usually do not happen in the way that I expect them to happen. So, and I don't know how that came over me, but since I started the Divinity School, I've made a decision, which was sort of involuntary, of being very kind and compassionate to myself and extending that kindness and compassion to others. We are at a place called Harvard Divinity School, and we are graduate students. So we think that, okay, we have to do this and we have to do that. We have to really produce and be proactive and do so much. But in trying to do so much, you forget that you're a human being and that you need to take care of yourself. So I became much humbler in my approach to Divinity School and the graduate studies, instead of just trying to make things happen. Like, again, I don't know why that came over me, but that's what's happening since my very first week over here.
Yeah, I mean, I could take on this question too. I think it's only been 2 months, but I think it's safe to say that I am a little more open-minded, and I think that's just something that comes with the territory. Because as I said before, like what I studied was theology, and by definition, that is faith seeking understanding. Where here classes are kind of different, right? Like you could get that, but I think here the study of religion is more prominent, right? That abstract feel, and it really makes you think about a lot of things. Like I have to say, like the challenge that I wanted, the challenge that I've gotten, good or bad, I don't know yet. Sometimes I go home feeling defeated, like what have I believe in, for the last 21 years. And sometimes I'm like, okay, this makes sense because that doesn't make any sense. So it's just that duality, I suppose. So yeah, I think that's one. I think that the other thing is like I am just I don't know what I want to do, and I think I am okay with that. I think I am okay with not knowing what the future holds, because I think a lot of us here are the same. Right? We just want to do good work, but the path in which to do good work is not necessarily clear. So we're being patient.
Sarah?
I definitely agree with your point about being more open-minded, especially within such a diverse set of classmates and community and all of that. Yes, my response would be creativity, just how in a very delightfully surprising way, coming here, the literary scene, the musical scene here, both within HDS and Harvard at large. So HDS, I'm part of the choir, and how relaxed it is. It's not an intense thing. You just, no auditioning, everyone is welcome, and you're able to sing. It's half an hour every week. And it's such a restorative practice, I find. And it's not, okay, critiquing every little thing, but it's more like, just be there in the beautiful Willings Chapel and enjoy the voices that we're creating together and this wonderful music. Also at Harvard, I'm part of the Bell Ringing Society. So on Sundays, we ring bells together in various literary projects. One of my courses, the Thomas Merton course, is very big on everyone doing a creative project, not just an essay, but also a creative project that really gets our different forms, creative forms and mediums flowing. And for that, I'm personally writing a children's book. So thinking about the different ways that we engage and the different outputs. That in many ways, yes, this is an academic degree, but we also have lots of fun. And we have fun with each other here too. And that's something that has been great. And that's changed me in a way so far too.
Terrific. Sarah, if I can, maybe I'm going to pivot. Jesus, I'm happy to get you in here, but maybe I'll get you in as the lead to the next one. I thought maybe I'd pivot off Sarah's comment about one of the projects she's doing in the class, just to have a couple of you reflect on what was a particularly memorable or important research project or paper or piece of work that you did have or have done so far in the context of one of your classes, whether it's working with others just to present one day or a big project you did at the end.
Yeah, I can go ahead and take the lead on this one. I think one thing that's very, very beautiful about the opportunity that you get here at HDS is the professors are doing, work that that has real life implications. And I think especially for me, I took a course last semester called Negotiating Across Worldviews. And this semester I'm actually doing a part-time research assistant position with the Kennedy School. And what's interesting is being able to pull different themes and different modes of understanding and put that into real world context. And just to be brief, the work that I'm doing now has to do with labor laws and labor policy laws, and part of it has to deal with like this notion of negotiations. And taking what I've learned from negotiations across worldviews last semester and some of the modes and motifs, it's interesting to see the real world implications that it could possibly have. And that this essentially the things you're reading and writing about, it's real world things. It's not something that you can just close your book on and call it a day. This stuff really matters, and it has the potential to really change the lives of yourselves, your colleagues, and others. So that's definitely a strong reflection for myself.
Others want to pick this up, and you're all first years. Rajay, I've got Rajay picking up on Jesus's point. I've got Rajay in a class on suffering and evil in Western thought, and we'll be pivoting to a project towards the end where you choose a case or an incident of something to evaluate, and then take advantage of the different thinkers and perspectives we've read in that class and work on. Rajay, it may be a little early to ask where you're going to go with that, but that's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I don't even know where exactly I'm going to go with that, but I think something I could say about that was like, I think I took this class for that reason. I think that is something that I've struggled with, suffering and evil. What do we necessarily mean by suffering? It's the same thing as pain. What is evil? What is the source of evil? And we've approached this from a very interesting lens, not theological, but philosophical. But there's so many people in our class that are from different backgrounds. You got the Buddhists over there, then you got different type of Christians in the group. Then you have an atheist also in the group. So it really make you, in a sense, contemplate everything, right? So I don't know. That's something where, again, when you're doing something within your group, within your certain context, is easy because you don't have to explain yourself. When you're doing something with people from different avenues, it's like you have to explain yourself, right? And it really makes you think. So no proposals yet. I'm still young, no research projects under my belt. But if I'm doing this in the first 2 months, I don't know, is it really looking interesting?
Great.
All right, I can touch briefly on a research paper that I'm writing right now for a class. Briefly because I'm writing it right now, so I don't really have all in my head right now. But it's about the beginning and the current state of Hindu studies at HTS. So I've made lots of research about how that area of focus started at Harvard in general and at HTS. And my hunch is that when you study the institution that you're attending right now, the institution itself and all that it has to offer, it gives you a lot of down-to-earth perspective about how the institution itself produces its scholarship. I can't really talk more about that right now because I've been working on that paper and it's not really steady in my mind. But that's a very good paper, and it's been very, very challenging. And my professor has been really pushing me, and she's going to be very vigorous about grading it. So I am trying to make sure that I'm going to write the best paper that I can do. But that's how we're living in the school.
Well, Professor Lamberth, I think you're muted right now.
I made the classic Zoom mistake, which we're all too familiar with over the last 2 years. Sarah, do you want to pick back up? You mentioned the children's book project, which sounds fascinating, but
Yeah, so I'm in this Thomas Merton class, and the great thing is for our final project, you can write more of a scholarly essay if you choose, or you can do more of a creative medium. I thought, I've been dying to write a children's project. Maybe this is a children's book project, so maybe this is the right time and this right place. And I talked to my professor, gave her my initial idea. She said, that's great, go for it. I think that's a kind of freedom that we get here, that we really, like within our tailored curriculum, we really get to focus, okay, these are the areas that we hope to explore further. But also within each of these classes, there's a lot of leeway and flexibility of how we think of creativity and having that in dialogue with our scholarly interests as well. And right now, this is still a little idea. This is Peter, a little squirrel who goes to this abbey that Thomas Merton was at and just explores and brings his joyful, vibrant, adventurous self to that particular destination and a holy place. So that's an idea. Still a work in progress, but hopefully by the end of the semester, it will be finished up.
Terrific. We're going to have to hunt down an illustrator as well to go along with your with your work there. Let me pick up on, if I can, on something that that Rajay actually mentioned, talking about class, but to ask you all how the makeup of the community of students and scholars here affects you, just particularly in terms of how culturally and religiously diverse it is, as Alessandra mentioned, I think, ranging from, and Rajay did too, ranging from students who really don't have religious commitments, but are interested in studying religion and thinking about how religion fits in, to students from all different traditions and branches within those traditions. So what are some concrete examples of where those kind of constitutive effects show up in your experience in class or in the broader life of HTS?
I think I can go ahead and take a jump at this one. I think for me, again, like trying to understand the intersection of religion and politics and policy is a very nuanced thing. And I think for me, oftentimes I go into conversations. I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, I'll use this one. I remember last semester we were having conversations regarding Christian nationalism, right? We don't need to go further into that than that. And there was someone that was attempting to become he's on track to become an ordained minister. And his conversation that he's had with some of his chaplaincy work and conversations in his congregation are vastly useful to someone that wants to convert, to promote some type of policy agenda that is equitable, that is culturally conscious, right? And I think just that alone is something that is very beautiful that you get to experience here. So for myself, I'm not personally someone that is or proclaim or ever think I will become a theologian, but I think the ability to be able to tap into your community to understand the implications of what you want to do or what other groups want to do, and to be morally conscious of that, I think that's a beautiful opportunity.
Thank you, Jesus. Someone else want to have an experience in mind or a reflection? Sarah?
Well, this goes back to my Thomas Merton course and bringing it up because it's a small seminar. And that's another great thing. We have classes, all different sizes, lecture classes, small seminars, slightly larger seminars, and there's a lot of different forms of the class. So that's something keep in mind, that there's not one type of class, but many different diverse offerings as well. I'm very partial to seminars. We have about, I think, 17 to 18 students in this particular class, with people who are non-religious, people who are Catholic themselves, people who are Christian, people who are Buddhist, people from other faiths, and all of us reading the same text and being there with Thomas Merton as he goes through his own journey of self-discovery, and thinking, wow, here we are many of us in our formative years, and thinking about these texts together and discussing and having the open dialogue, and just being able to hear my classmates' perspectives and how enriching that is. Some of them bringing work experience, other ministry experience they've had before, others are younger like myself, and our questions that we bring in too. So all of this, that there's a very much a deep respect for one another here, and vulnerability too, and that we all share in this communal space. And even that extends within the classroom and also outside the classroom in the other activities. So very much a place where people can feel like they are heard, and that their voices and opinions do matter, and they're taken seriously and in a great way by their classmates. So love that diversity and that welcoming aspect too.
Terrific, thank you. Rajay or Wesley, thoughts on this, or shall we pivot?
I just want to build on something that Rajay said earlier about being open-minded, coming to Divinity School forces you to be open-minded. You might, not that you were not open-minded before, but before you might have had a theoretical understanding of other religions, but when you see a person from a different tradition and then you interact with that person in class, outside of class, in section, crossing through the yard, then the presence of that person, the very presence of that person tells you something, and it stretches your open-mindedness and forces you to be more broad-minded as well.
Yeah, I think in terms of this question, I think I've really appreciated my Buddhist peers because I think a lot of questions that I ask myself, like their approach to it is just so different. It's almost it is accepted, which is like from a Catholic standpoint, I think stuff like suffering is like it's not necessarily accepted. I think we really like who did it, why is it happening. Well, I think, and I'm not as immersed in Buddhist teachings, but from what I could gather from when my peers speak about it, it's something that they accept, right? It's like as part of life. I find that to be interesting because there's like a couple billion people that don't live that way, right? But it's also interesting because I would never have got that perspective if I wasn't in a class like that or around people that posit that type of thinking about life. So that's one thing. Another thing is like I really have to explain everything because not you assume that people know that what they don't know, right? So it's like explaining stuff to people, which makes you, in a sense, a better scholar of whatever that is, right? I think I'm becoming a better scholar of Catholicism, a better follower because I have to explain why we do what we do. Never had that problem. Never had that problem. So just little stuff like that. Just little stuff like that. I would say is really life changing.
Really interesting. So let's pivot to looking towards our prospective applicants here out and prospective students out in the audience. And let me ask you what pieces of advice you all might offer to those who are thinking about applying here, thinking about wanting to come here, trying to discern how appropriate that is and where that fits in their journeys right now.
I'll go first because I'm gonna have to leave early. But I think if I was supposed to rewind time and really think about it, I think really give yourself time to think about where you're going. I think is absolutely important. Like whatever you need, like make sure that school has it. Visit the school. I would have to say, visit the school if you can. See how the chemistry of the people are, and if that's somewhere that you think you could fit, then I think you should go there. If that's not, then I don't think you should say to yourself like, but it'll be fine. Like, take stuff like that into consideration, I would have to say. But apart from that, don't doubt yourself. Keep your head up and good luck.
Thank you. Sarah?
Yes, well, 3 pieces of advice. First, talk to people you trust. I remember I talked to my chaplain, I talked to friends, I talked to parents, I talked to people even on this kind of broad scale before I was looking at particular schools, and then when I was looking at particular schools too, but just Divinity School, is that the right program for me? Is this the right time? Kind of these big picture questions and reflecting on that and giving yourself time and space to do that as well. Secondly, connect with a current student. We have such a great resource. You can go to the Ask Students email, write, make a little introduction to yourself, maybe people you want to be connected to. Maybe you really want to be connected to someone who does policy work like Jesus does. Maybe you want to do something more on ministerial path, church ministry path, just mentioned that. And hopefully you can be connected with a current student who does that. I found that was really helpful. Before I sent my application, I was still kind of thinking about schools. Is this the right place for me? I was able to connect with another Christian student, and she was super helpful. And then finally, not just for applications, but in general, read your essay aloud. Hopefully I know the personal statement is important and you'll probably be working on drafts, but when you have the final draft, print it on a sheet of paper, read it out loud, and then hopefully that will be clarifying as well.
I guess I can go ahead.
Sure.
I think for me, I would just advise, beyond what Raja and Sarah had said, is do not allow, and I say this coming from the context of, I'm a first generation college student. I never really understood what higher education as it relates to graduate school looks like. And I think oftentimes when you go to, your career service counselor or really anyone that has what people will deem as a quote unquote real job, and they offer this take on divinity school and everything of that magnitude, and they're saying, well, it's not a competitive degree or whatever it is in the job field and stuff like that. I would just simply say, do not listen to what everyone else is saying, and really just dive into what you believe to be true, and what you feel is right for yourself. I will say that, don't let finances get to you. Don't allow is this the right time for me? If an opportunity lends its hand, just go ahead and take it. So that would be my biggest thing, is just to lie in and trust yourself, and to not allow anyone to discredit or discourage you from applying.
Terrific.
Yeah, just like everybody else is saying, don't doubt yourself. Just show up, do the work. Don't think too much about it. Be kind, compassionate to yourself. You'll be fine.
Excellent. So we had an interesting question in the chat, at least, asking about how where people wind up versus where they thought they were going to go in terms of coming into this degree. Jesus, you're our only second-year student, so I may have to pitch this one to you, but you probably have a good sense of a lot of your colleagues as well, and maybe can talk about how what kind of development happens with students and how they find their path here.
Yeah, no, most definitely. It's definitely a spiritual and professional and personal journey that you go through the 2 years, or that you go through, especially for me, having one full year been completely online. But I will say that for myself, I entered in thinking that I was going to do law school right after this. And, my mind has shifted, not a whole lot, but it's shifted. So instead I'm doing, I'll be applying for a Master's of Public Policy degree. And so, there's definitely going to be a shift in how you perceive things. And I think that's part of what Harvard Divinity School is good at, is deconstructing what you believe to be true is. And in that process, you are able to reconstruct what it is that you want to be, what you believe in, what you're passionate about. And I think oftentimes we come in with these larger meta understandings of what we want to be. For example, I was like, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a civil rights attorney. And in that process, I had to really discern, well, what is driving me to want to pursue a passion to help and serve others. And I think for me, it's a matter of being honest and real with yourself, and not allowing, job markets or allowing other people's opinions to kind of sway you, but to really dig into your own passion and your own discernment. I know for some of my fellow classmates, some people came in thinking that they were going to become ordained ministers. And now they switched over to the MTS because they're passionate about nonprofit work. And so again, I believe it was Rajay or someone else that had referred to, come in with an open mind, allow your journey to really lead itself. It's there. It's just a matter of you listening and essentially getting out of your own way. And that's what I had to do. So that's been my process.
Terrific answer. And that speaks to one thing we do that I think is really important. We do have students who come into one of the degree programs and find that when they've been here for a semester, or maybe a semester and a half, that they really realize that whether it's moving from the MTS to the MDiv or from the MDiv to the MTS, that concretely maybe their path or their aspiration is really slightly different, and that a slightly different preparation would be possible. And that's certainly possible. The other thing that's really a great opportunity within this degree program is that all of the field experience opportunities that we have, which are structured in part for our MDiv students, but those are actually all available to all of our students to take part in. And they range from work in nonprofits to work in various religious communities, and are really great opportunities either during the year or in the summer. So that kind of flexibility to take advantage of sort of what the other folks are doing with some of your electives or some of your time is a possibility too that may prove to be valuable and interesting. I'm looking at the clock and realizing what the hour is. I want to say thank you to our student panelists here. It's really been a great pleasure to work with all of you on thinking about this, and I hope that's been constructive for the participants in the session. Alessandra, if I can ask you to come back in and maybe bring us together for the conclusion, that would be great.
Hello. Thank you so much, Professor, and thank you, dear students. Being new to Harvard Divinity School, it's always fascinating for me to learn from your experiences. Thank you for your candor. Thank you for sharing for being vulnerable and kind of sharing what it is like to be a student at HDS and to give of your time and to give so generously. So thank you all so much. It was a true pleasure for me. And thank you to our attendees as well for tuning in. This session has been recorded and it will be posted to our YouTube channel as well as our events calendar. So give us a few days just to get that recording all set for you. Please feel free to sign up for any other virtual sessions that we have coming up. We have our big virtual open house happening on November 9th. So that's just a full day of events for you to just pop in and out of as you see fit. And again, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, panelists. And hopefully we'll see you in the future.
All right. Thanks, everyone.